The next item of business this afternoon is topical questions. Question 1, Linda-Fabiani.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that local authorities are owed more than £3 million in rent as a result of the so-called bedroom tax.
Margaret Burgess.
The Scottish Government is doing all it can to help the people hit by the bedroom tax, with £20 million of funding available this year and up to a further £20 million available next year. This money has been given to local authorities who can provide discretionary housing payments to tenants in financial difficulty. I would urge those tenants to contact their local authority so that they may access the money provided by the Scottish Government and pay their rent in full. Mitigating the full impact of welfare reform will not be possible. The only way we can end the bedroom tax and protect Scottish families is if we have full control of the welfare system in an independent Scotland.
Linda-Fabiani.
I thank the Minister for that answer, and of course the discretionary housing payment is meant to mitigate some of the effects for some and enable people to stay in their homes. I wonder if the Minister could give me her view on the level of discretionary housing payment funding that comes from the DWP and the way that the Scottish Government is able to top it up, and whether in fact that combined sum is adequate to keep people in their homes.
Minister.
Okay, the level of DHP funding from the UK Government, I believe, is totally inadequate, as Scotland receives only 8.9% of the total DHP budget, despite having 12% of those affected. So Scotland and London are estimated to have by DWP to have the same numbers affected by the bedroom tax, but in 2013-14 Scotland received £15.3 million compared with £58.2 million for London. And in terms of the funding that the Scottish Government has given, that will take 7 out of 10 people out of the bedroom tax altogether and should help come most of the way to alleviating those that are unable to pay the bedroom tax.
Linda-Fabiani.
And whilst that is helping some, there are those who feel very much threatened by the potential loss of their home. Does the Minister share my concern at the recent report of the Tory Labour-run South Ayrshire Council actually sending out threatening letters to families who are finding themselves in arrears as a result of the bedroom tax?
Minister.
I also share the concerns of the member regarding what we read in the press about the Tory Labour administration in South Ayrshire, particularly the reference to children's services in the letter, and accept that did cause a lot of concern for many tenants. I wrote to the Leader of the Council on the 3rd of November expressing my concern and urged the Council to ensure that tenants in financial difficulty can access the funding, whether through discretionary housing payments or the Scottish Welfare Fund. And on the 2nd of October, I wrote to South Ayrshire Council informing them of Scottish Government funding of more than £389,000, giving them a total of £651,419 to help tenants affected by the bedroom tax. They're also aware that that funding will be provided in the next financial year as well.
A supplementary from Ian Gray.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Surely the message of these figures is that over 80,000 Scottish families are struggling to pay their rent due to the effect of this iniquitous tax, and that the half measures of mitigation, both from DWP and the Scottish Government, are not doing enough to relieve them. The Scottish Government are not doing all that they can to mitigate the effects of this tax. They could find the full £50 million needed to banish the effects altogether, so that all families would know that this support was available to them. And exactly as the Northern Ireland Executive have done with the agreement of Treasury and DWP. Will the Minister reconsider the position and banish this bedroom tax from Scotland?
Minister.
First thing is, we've made it very clear how we'll banish the bedroom tax from Scotland, and that's if we have a yes vote in the referendum next year. That's the first thing I would say. As regards the point the member made about Northern Ireland, I think we have to be very clear, and the member is well aware that the situation in Northern Ireland that is social security is devolved in Northern Ireland, and they are able to do that. The Scottish Government and myself, in all the meetings I have had with UK ministers, have raised that very point, that we should have that. We should be able to do likewise here. We are very clear where we think housing benefit and benefit should be controlled in Scotland, and the member should also be well aware that we are doing everything we can within our legal powers to top up discretionary housing payments. It is the only way the Scottish Government is able to give grants to individuals, and that's through topping up the discretionary housing payments to the maximum level by paying the money to the local authorities.
Sandra White.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Does the Minister share my concern that the work of successive Scottish administrations to reduce homelessness will be undermined by this pernicious policy, which we didn't choose from a government that we didn't elect?
Minister.
Okay, I absolutely agree that this is a policy that's absolutely pernicious by a government that we didn't elect, and I think there are concerns that the Scottish Government is leading the way in homelessness throughout Europe as homelessness is devolved, and this Parliament has taken it on board, not just with this government but since Scottish Parliament came into being. And it seems to me it's appalling that we have a UK government by their policies trying to undermine this. But our priority for homelessness remains as a preventative measure, and we will do everything we can to ensure that our homeless policy is not affected by UK government measures.
Neil Findlay.
Appalling though the bedroom tax is, its impact on councils and housing associations is nothing compared to what will happen when the payment of universal credit moves from being paid to landlords on to tenants. In Northern Ireland, the Executive successfully lobbied to prevent this happening. Can I ask on a very specific point? Has the Minister approached the UK Government to ask them not to pay direct to tenants?
Minister.
I can say that I have done that, and I said that to the previous member, Ian Grave, when he spoke, that I have asked that very question and asked that the money in Scotland should be paid direct to landlords and not to tenants, on the basis that that's what the landlords want, but more importantly, that's what the tenants want as well. And I made that point very strongly to the UK ministers when I last met them.
Christina McKelvey.
Thanks very much, Presiding Officer. The Minister will be aware that I've written to the Prime Minister twice on the matter of people who suffer from motor neuron disease and the impact of the bedroom tax on them. Can the Minister give any comfort to MND sufferers, many of whom who only have 14 months to live, who have been told by the Labour-appointed Lord Freud to work longer hours and take in a lodger?
Minister.
I think that's part of the reason why, we're looking. I agree absolutely with the member that those suggestions about taking in a lodger or working and all the other kind of suggestions coming out of the UK Government are entirely inappropriate. They're inappropriate for most people, but they're particularly inappropriate for people that have a disability, and particularly one as severe as MND. And we have continually lobbied that disabled people should be exempt altogether from the bedroom tax, and that's something we'll continue to lobby about, and hopefully people in the situations as outlined by the member will be able to take up the discretionary housing payment and should not be left with the worry that they currently have about the bedroom tax.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes this afternoon's topical questions. I'll allow a moment or two for members to change places prior to the next item of business.